According to The Guardian, Russia has issued a warning to Australia over potential involvement in an international peacekeeping initiative in Ukraine. The Russian embassy in Australia stated that any deployment of Australian troops as part of a coalition of the willing would lead to grave consequences. The Australian government is reportedly considering a proposal introduced by European leaders to send peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. This initiative aims to enforce any future peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. However, Russia has strongly opposed such plans, reiterating its stance that foreign military presence in Ukraine is totally unacceptable. A statement from the Russian embassy, initially reported by the Sydney Morning Herald, criticized Australia for remaining firmly on the side of war alongside European nations that continue to escalate the war despite indications of progress in peace negotiations. The embassy further claimed that the presence of Western forces under the designation of peacekeepers would undermine peace efforts. For Australia, joining the so-called coalition of the willing would entail grave consequences. Once again, Western boots on the ground are unacceptable for Russia, and we will not remain passive observers, the statement read. The embassy also insisted that this message would not be interpreted as a threat, describing it instead as a warning. It stated that Russia has no intention to harm Australians, but suggested that Canberra could easily avoid trouble by refraining from irresponsible adventurism in the zone of the special military operation. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has reaffirmed the country's support for Ukraine, emphasising that Australia has played an important role in previous peacekeeping operations. There's discussion at the moment about potential peacekeeping, and from my government's perspective, we're open to consideration of any proposals going forward, he said last week. However, he also noted that Australia had not yet received a formal request to contribute troops. A spokesperson for the Australian government clarified that the deployment of Australian troops to support peacekeeping forces in Ukraine is not under consideration at this time. Additionally, Defence Industry Minister Pat Conroy stated that such a commitment is not being envisaged. The proposed peacekeeping initiative was introduced by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who suggested deploying 30,000 troops from European nations in the event of a ceasefire. He emphasised that the UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air, together with others, calling on Europe to take the lead in ensuring stability in the region.
The massive drone attack on Russia was organized by Kiev to demonstrate its belligerent stance at a meeting of US and Ukrainian delegations in Saudi Arabia on March 11. This was stated by Russian political scientist Andrei Koshkin. The political scientist said that he linked the activity of the Ukrainian army to the political events in which Volodymyr Zelensky participated. I am sure that this attack was prepared in advance. The Ukrainian side, which met with the US delegation today, was prepared for such an increase in terrorist attacks against our peaceful targets. This is probably due to the Ukrainian delegation's position in Saudi Arabia. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has already said about the forecast of the results of this meeting that they do not expect any progressive proposals from Ukraine. Ukraine's Andriy Kovalenko, a National Security Council official responsible for countering disinformation, said the drone attack should encourage Russian President Vladimir Putin to accept the proposals Kiev plans to propose in Saudi Arabia. The largest drone attack in history was carried out on Moscow and the Moscow region, said Kovalenko. This is an additional signal to Putin that he should also be interested in a ceasefire in the air. It should be noted that a massive drone attack was launched against Russia this morning. The drone attack killed 2 people, injured 18, and caused extensive damage in Moscow. Russia's Ministry of Defense said that air defenses destroyed 337 Ukrainian drones overnight, with 91 of them over the Moscow region. Russia's aviation authority Rosaviatsia said flights were restricted in and out of 4 Moscow airports, including Domodedovo, Vnukovo, and Zhukovsky to the south of the city and Sheremetyevo to the north, following the drone attack. The attack came ahead of Ukrainian and U.S. officials meeting in Saudi Arabia to discuss a ceasefire deal with Russia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, "All defensive measures and actions were carried out in advance, in good time. And this allows for the protection of Moscow and the Moscow region, as well as many other regions." Peskov said visiting OSCE Secretary-General Feridun Sinirlioglu had been shown damage caused by the attack on Moscow. It's important that he was shown the aftermath of the attack. But more importantly, what the Kiev regime is hitting, residential buildings, said Peskov. Ukraine itself says Russian missiles have repeatedly struck Ukrainian apartment blocks since President Vladimir Putin sent tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine in 2022. Ukraine launched drone attacks on 10 Russian regions. This was the largest drone attack ever. On the night of March 11, the Ukrainian armed forces launched the most massive drone attack on Russian regions, including Moscow. In the Moscow region, 1 person was killed as a result of falling drone debris. The attack took place on the day of negotiations between Kyiv and the United States. Overnight, air defense forces intercepted and destroyed 337 Ukrainian drones over Russian territory, the Defense Ministry reported. Of these, 91 drones were shot down over the Moscow region, 126 drones over the Kursk region, 38 drones over the territory of the Bryansk region, 25 drones over the territory of the Belgorod region, 22 drones over the territory of the Ryazan region, 10 drones over the territory of the Kaluga region, 8 drones over the territory of the Lipetsk region, 8 drones over the territory of the Oryol region, 6 drones over the territory of the Voronezh region, 3 drones over the territory of the Nizhny Novgorod region. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin earlier reported that air defense systems intercepted 74 drones flying toward the capital. He called it the largest drone attack on Moscow. In the Moscow region, 1 person died and 2 were injured when a drone fell. This happened in Domodedovo in the parking lot of the Mirator distribution center. In total, 8 people were injured in the Moscow region, said Governor Andrei Vorobyov. According to Vorobyov, reports of drones came from Kolomna, Zaraysk, Serebryany Prudy, Serpukhov, Ramenskoy, Voskresensk, Lukhovitsy, Bronitsy, Domodedovo, Leninskoy, Podolsk, Elektrostal and Kotelniki. Due to the drone attack, flights have been suspended at Domodedovo, Sheremetyevo, Vnukovo and Zhukovsky airports. Restrictions have also been introduced at Strogino Airport in Nizhny Novgorod and Tanoshna Airport in Yaroslavl. The attack took place on the day when negotiations between Ukrainian and U.S. delegations were to take place in Saudi Arabia, the first public contacts between representatives of the two countries after the spat between Presidents Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump in the White House.
Вот он, брать. Вот он.